Hey, thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. I'm Meteorologist Chris Bianchi. So you may have heard about the amount of snow and rain that we've seen in California, and in some cases record levels of snow and rain out in California. It's been driven by something you've probably heard of, something called an atmospheric river. So I'm going to explain what that is, why California has seen so much rain and snow, and also for us here in Colorado, how that's impacted our weather, because it's had some pretty substantial impacts on our weather. And by the way, this week of March the 14th, we're going to have some pretty substantial impacts from that atmospheric river setup as well. So let's start things off, though, by taking a look at what we've seen in California so far this winter. And boy, oh boy, this is just stunning. 664 inches in Soda Springs, California. By the way, that does not include the March 14th, March 15th storm system, which is likely to bring another couple of feet of snow to a lot of these areas. So some areas here are almost for sure going to end up with 700 inches worth of seasonal snowfall. Put that in perspective, what you're looking at here, this is between about 50 to 60 feet worth of snowfall. I want to repeat that. Mammoth Mountain, 600 inches of snow, that is equivalent to 50 feet worth of snowfall. Soda Springs, it's about 56 feet worth of snowfall. So this is just, again, an enormous amount of snow. And yes, in the Sierra Nevada, we can get these big systems, we can get these big storm seasons. We're likely going to end up, and in fact, in some cases, we've already ended up with our highest snow totals on record in some of these areas. So just stunning. By the way, the southern Sierra Nevada mountains, their highest snowpack to date on record. So again, this is record level stuff for us. Now, it's not just snow, it's also rain. How about this in San Francisco? Since October the 1st, almost more than 2 feet worth of rainfall, and that is more than 10 inches above the season to date average for us in the San Francisco area. So just, again, enormous amount of water that has just come on down. It's all as a result of an atmospheric river. Again, this is a term you've probably heard of quite a few times. In fact, you can see it. This is as of March 14th. You can see the atmospheric river in action. So what it is, it's a narrow ribbon of a big plume of moisture. It's basically, again, a river about 30,000 feet up in the air. It's about the level where jet planes fly and where the jet stream is, where you get just this narrow plume about 200 to 300 miles wide of really just bountiful moisture that just streams into areas and has numerous impacts. So let's get into a bit more detail about an atmospheric river, right? So you get at this point, it's a narrow plume of a lot of water that streams into the western U.S., especially this time of year. So there it is. I just showed it to you on satellite. It was very evident. And notice where it dips down. It dips into Hawaii. So sometimes this is referred to as the Pineapple Express. If you've ever been to Hawaii, probably don't have to tell you, it's warm, it's muggy. So when you're taking moisture from Hawaii and you're taking it on up into California, you're taking deep tropical moisture. Another weather 101, as that warmer air can hold more moisture. So when you're going south with this, you're accessing areas that have more water available to them, and you're taking it into areas that don't have typically as much water available to them. So again, a Pineapple Express, an atmospheric river. You get an area of low pressure that sets on up off the California coast. It takes all that water and it streams it into southern parts of California and central parts of the state as well. So I kind of mentioned this a short while ago. Atmospheric rivers often between about, 250 to 375 miles wide, and that means that moisture is pretty concentrated in a small space. And so some places like Northern California, Oregon, Washington may not even see any rain or snow from an atmospheric river setup, while Southern and Central California just get pounded with all of this water. But specifically, and by the way, the amount of water that's within one of these atmospheric rivers, it's between 8 to 15 times more water than the flow of the Mississippi River, which is the largest river system in the United States and one of the top 5 largest river systems in the entire world. So at this point, hopefully you understand a couple things. One, atmospheric rivers have a ton of water within them because they access the Central Pacific Ocean, which has a lot of tropical and humid air available to it, and they're fairly narrow in terms of their scope. Now, for the Sierra Nevada specifically, I was just mentioning, right, how there's about 50 to 60 feet worth of snowfall that's fallen, almost all of it from these atmospheric rivers. So this is how it works for an atmospheric river. The best analogy for an atmospheric river, this is one I use all the time. Think about taking a wet sponge and then just squeezing out all that water. That's what basically mountains do with these atmospheric rivers. So you get all that moisture that's just being streamed into these mountains. And by the way, remember the Sierra Nevada can go up as high as 14 to 15, almost 15,000 feet in elevation. So you get this, you got the Pacific Ocean, right? It's flat. And then next thing, boom, you've got these mountains, and it forces the air to rapidly rise and condense. And what that does is it produces a ton of snow. So again, what I was mentioning with the sponge, that's what these mountains do with these atmospheric rivers. They just take every last bit of moisture out, and it's a very sudden rise because, again, when you go from Hawaii to the Sierra Nevada, there's nothing to stop that rise. So this air rapidly rises, it condenses into all that snow, and the result is what I was just showing you, 600 plus inches worth of snowfall. And that is thanks to the upslope from these atmospheric river events. Now, back here at home in Colorado, we felt some of that. Notice here on the snowpack map here across Colorado how the Arkansas, the South Platte, yeah, they've had decent snow seasons, but notice how the San Juans and the Gunnison River basins are doing way better than basically everybody else across the state. The Gunnison and the San Juans are often usually getting a lot of their moisture from these atmospheric river setups. So an old kind of very basic 101 of Colorado weather forecasting is if it's raining in LA, it's probably going to snow in the San Juans a day or two later, and that's kind of what we're looking at. In fact, this is as of March 14th. I know some of you may watch this later, but this is as of March 14th, 2023. Notice LA, how it's raining, and by the way, just dumping rain once again for us in the southern parts of California. The Sierra getting pounded with more feet of snowfall. Well, guess where all that water's going? Yeah, into Colorado as we get into your Wednesday and your Thursday. It's an atmospheric river setup, which means, again, the San Juans and the Gunnison River basins will probably get the most snow out of this upcoming storm system. And there you go, winter storm warnings up for the mountains of southwestern Colorado. We're up to 2 feet worth of snowfall will come down in those areas. But then notice a little further east and north, we're only talking about maybe 6 to 14 inches worth of snowfall as you get further east and away from that atmospheric river. And then for us here in Denver, well, we're on the lee side of the mountains, which means we get downsloping winds, the opposite of the upslope winds, which I was mentioning with that sponge analogy. Yeah, we get the other side of things where it's basically adding a bunch of hot air to a sponge. You basically just dry things on out, and we get maybe a few snow showers on your Thursday, and that is pretty much it. But to kind of recap things, when we're talking about an atmospheric river in California, those atmospheric rivers can oscillate. They can sometimes impact the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Portland, Oregon often feel those. But this season, it has been relentless for central and southern California, where we've had an atmospheric river again and again and again and again. And that has pounded that part of the state with these narrow 200 to 400 mile wide bands of intense moisture, and then into the mountains. You get that upslope flow. You force the air to rapidly rise. It condenses, it squeezes out every last drop of moisture, and results in just feet upon feet worth of snowfall. And that's why we've seen the season we have out there in California, and it has been one to remember. And here in Colorado, we're certainly feeling some of the impacts from that as well. So hopefully that answers your questions about atmospheric rivers, how they work, and why they've led to quite the season for our friends out in California.